In the future, every company is going to be a technology company.
Crypto art NFTs is a bubble at this precise moment, but NFTs themselves are definitely not a bubble. It's definitely not a fad.
Hi, this is Steffy and welcome back to another episode of The Financial Fox, investing and innovation ideas with a twist. So today is going to be super cool because I have two inspiring women on the show and we are going to talk about fashion and technology. So I'm super excited because are my two favorite subjects. Anyway, we are going to discuss the re-evolution of fashion, how blockchain is disrupting the industry for the good, obviously. We are going to talk about NFT and their value and utility in fashion, and also how fashion is evolving and changing a world that is becoming more decentralized, community-driven, and where information and technology are opening up new opportunities for brands as well as creators and users. It is a pleasure to welcome Karinna Nobbs and Marjorie Hernandez, co-founders at Dematerialised. Hi, Marjorie. Hi, Karinna. How are you?
Hey, good. Nice to talk to you today.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Three women talking about fashion and technology. I was so excited.
Same.
Absolutely.
So maybe do you want to introduce yourself so, people understand a little bit about you, what you're doing, your background, and how you got into crypto?
So I started my career as a visual merchandiser, and then I moved into academia, mostly specializing in fashion communication and fashion retail. Then I moved in as I started to get bitten by the bug of social media and e-commerce into being a futurist and looking to advise fashion and luxury companies how to use emerging technology as a point of differentiation. And then from there, I moved on to create my first digital fashion company, which is a social enterprise called Hot Seconds. And on that journey, that's where I had the good fortune to meet Marjorie at a circularity conference in Paris. And the two of us really just bonded over, it was my first time to understand about NFTs, and I'd known about blockchain. But for me, I just really felt that there was something really special and critical about digital fashion and blockchain coming together effectively to create an NFT, and that is going to be the thing that's going to tip this market from niche to mainstream. So yeah, that's me.
So I'm Marjorie. I'm originally from Venezuela, living in Berlin, in Germany since 13 years now. My education background, I first studied architecture and then I studied media art and design here in Germany. In my professional career, I work as a strategist, doing brand experience and stuff like that. And then previous to becoming an entrepreneur, I was leading the innovation lab for Ernst & Young in the German-speaking region. And then we were dealing with a lot of blockchain related topics and business implementations for blockchain. Me and my partner, we were very interested in blockchain technology since 2013, investing in crypto, doing all kinds of things. He joined the Ethereum Foundation in 2015. And, with my work in Ernst & Young and so on, we decided in 2018 to start our own venture. And that is still today Luxo. And Luxo's mission is basically to bring blockchain outside of the finance world and into what we call the new creative economies, basically tools and applications that will power creative people to harvest what the blockchain can do for them, and basically demystifying and taking the complexity out of it. So in that journey, obviously, we make this very extensive white paper around how, blockchain will power creative industries in different ways. And, our tech development was all around, still today, all around standardization of identities for users and products, etc. on the blockchain. That's super important, with that vision of the future of creating a proper economy with where those products are living. And we became increasingly fascinated by digital goods as the years passed, and we were just desperate to get into the digital fashion market. It was just, we knew it's coming, we knew it's going to happen, and we just wanted to become even more and more active. And at that point in time, there were not a lot of people who were excited about it as we were. And when I met Karinna, it was oh, she's just even more excited than I am, which is incredible. So we kind of like was a magical, very fortunate moment that we met, and we decided to bring the Dematerialized to life. Interesting enough, we made that decision in February of 2020, so weeks before the global lockdown, which is insane. And we use some of the technology pieces that we built at Luxo, and implementing in a fantastic manner.
So that's great. That's really good. But before we go into the Dematerialize and we explain what the platform does and what you're working with, I would like to clarify. You mentioned blockchain into fashion, and I think it's important to say what actually blockchain can bring into fashion, because everybody's saying, "Oh, blockchain is great for that, is great for that," but within the fashion industry, what is the real value that can add? Because I think this is super important. The fashion industry is an industry that hasn't been developing, transforming for so many years. If we think is one of the oldest industry, because we can go back to like very, very, very old centuries, and was still, fashion was still there, but hasn't actually been evolving at the same pace that some other industry has been evolving, right? As only now technology has come in and start to shake things up. So maybe Marjorie, you wanna pick that up because of Luxo. So how blockchain is gonna help the fashion industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as a basic premise, and this is a thought that Karinna and I share, is that, in the future, every company is going to be a technology company. The product that you, as a result of it, will differentiate it. But every company will be a technology company. There's no way around it. So the fashion industry cannot escape this. There's no way around it. They cannot try to drive this business and pretend technology is living in a vacuum. Otherwise, they will become some kind of like outdated, and some other players would redefine what fashion means for, contemporary humans. That being said, what the blockchain can do really well is create digital uniqueness. So that's the basic premise. So anything that needs to be identified, authenticated, and prove its value by saying it was made by this person of this entity at this point in time can benefit from blockchain technology. So these are problems that are common across several industries. Like this is life or death matter, for example, in the pharmaceutical world. In the automotive world, it's also super important, but in the fashion world is how they define value, right? That's how their IP and the price tags are justified, is this garment was made by this person. Therefore, it's more valuable than this other garment that was done by this other person. So basically the ability of identifying things, identifying products, identifying creators, and being able to track and verify information through the lifetime of a product. So these are things, there are problems, again, common in different industries, but super important in the fashion industry. So what blockchain can do for them is basically identify your products, give them an identity that exists in the virtual world, even though it's a physical product, we bring them into the digital world. And basically you start recording data and sharing information with your consumer, and that data can be displayed as storytelling, can be just displayed as mere information. But it's that part of like having that access to data. And in the long term, that data, that access can signify a bunch of other stuff, right? Like you can have your engagement, your customer engagement programs based on some kind of systems based on the ownership of products, right? Or, secondary markets, they're based on the identities of the products and things like that, or trading physical products against digital products. I mean, like the possibilities are endless, but the beginning of all of that is just the ability of identifying products in a place that is not living in the silo of a company, but is living in an infrastructure that will be, in theory, there forever, and that data cannot be corrupted. So that's super important, right? If you pay 50,000 euros for a Patek Philippe watch and you have the digital ownership, you don't want anybody to be able to tamper with that digital certificate. So that's kind of the things that you can do. And, I think, people at the beginning was really focusing in supply chain, but I think supply chain is one of like the last like that's the end goal, right? And supply chains are highly complex and non-digital. So I think we will get there later, but the ability of identifying products today is there. So
yeah,
that's what
I think you mentioned some great point, and definitely can help to fight counterfeiting for a certain extent. And then in the secondary market, I mean, I'm really passionate about it, and I can see the value that actually registering data, proving those data, proving ownership can really value to a market that otherwise you get lost. Those data, they get lost, and you get a bag, you don't know where it was from, because there is so many fake stuff. So that's great. And also I think we did mention about getting fashion into the digital world, and this is where maybe Karinna can come in and explain about the dematerialized and how that come into the picture, because fashion is not just what we can touch anymore, be in the virtual world all the time, every day, for meetings and stuff. There is a big world that is open up to anybody, and fashion can be there.
Definitely. I think when Marjorie and I first put together the Dematerialised, we looked at all the different kind of like problems that there are in the environment to think about, okay, what are we trying to solve with the platform that we've created? And I think one thing is that what you just mentioned, that increasingly we're living our lives digitally, how we present ourselves digitally, whether it's on a social media platform, whether that's the move into gaming environments, metaverses, having meetings in VR in a professional context, going on a date in VR in a social kind of context. These are all things which are becoming much more kind of commonplace. And so there, as a result, we want to enable the ability to kind of like dress what's being quite affectionately described at the moment as screenwear. So some people have said kind of like screenwear is the new streetwear. Effectively, it's a new category of that hasn't previously existed. And I think I had kind of previously used the Dolly Parton meme or meme as a kind of like as an example of this, in that for the different platforms that we present ourselves on, we already curate our digital identities, and the next step forward from that is playing with our avatars, dressing our avatars, layering that kind of like different content. And I think the other thing that virtual fashion or digital fashion is also able to do is that it provides people with an alternative to physical fashion. We are living in an era where we know overconsumption and overproduction is a problem for everybody at every single part of the supply chain. And people, end consumers and businesses, are looking for solutions that have a lower impact on the environment, or that if you don't have any more space for dresses or items in your closet, well, you might have some space for them in your digital closet. And we want to be the people who kind of can take that to you.
I think that's great. That's just kind of scary. You see so many people addicted to shopping. They're just gonna feel the digital world or with everything. No, but let's maybe explain a little bit about Dematerialize, how it works. The platform.
Sure. So, I mean, again, Marjorie and I had a very shared idea that initially we wanted to challenge that kind of proposition that digital doesn't feel real and that it's not emotional. And so one of the reasons that we built into our kind of front end experience is that initially when you land on our platform, you land in a completely 3D environment. So we want to kind of like immerse people, kind of like draw them in, and the environment is interactive. So that's the kind of like first point of difference. The next point of difference is that when you are intrigued by a product that you see in that environment, you then get more information. So again, because of the blockchain, we can provide a lot of different points of metadata, which you can view on chain right there and then from the page. And also that we kind of story tell as well. And then again, we wanted to bring in other kind of forms of technology. So we also have an augmented reality product view pre-purchase as another way, so that again, the user can bring the item into their own environment to like look at the digital craftsmanship before they kind of purchase it as well. And then our kind of like next point of differentiation is around payment. And we know that at the moment, not everybody has a crypto wallet, but the great thing about Dematerialised is that you don't need one, because we process fiat regular payments, so credit card, debit card, Google Pay, Apple Pay, as well as accepting crypto payment. And that was really important to us to start opening up a wider audience to NFTs. And I know this is something you want to talk with us about next, but yeah, that was really important. And then the next kind of phase of what we're trying to do is around creating post-purchase utility. So one of the criticisms of digital fashion is, okay, I have my digital asset, my NFT, what can I actually do with it? And so here we've created 4 kind of like distinct pathways. The first is around showcasing your asset. So we see that in the NFT space, the kind of exhibitionism, if you like, about, okay, this is what I've collected. I want to show my connoisseurship of the pieces that I've kind of collected. And the great thing is that as part of the Luxo infrastructure, we have something called Universal Profile. And this does many, many things that we can go into. But one of them is it very beautifully displays your NFT collection in a very simple UI that anybody is able to use. The second post-purchase pathway is around wearability. And for this, we're kind of looking at a number of different options. Obviously, augmented reality try-on is something that's very seductive. It's not totally there yet in terms of the tech doesn't quite do exactly what we want to do it, especially when we're trying to attract quite specific fashionistas who are very kind of determined about their expectations. The next pathway is portability into other environments, so specifically games and metaverses. And that, first of all, we kind of just now we're working with open source environments, so Sansar and VR chat specifically. And then we're kind of rolling out more as we create either partnership agreements with those kind of more closed environments, as well as just looking to see where are people hanging out and which metaverse is like hot right now. And these are the ones that we're kind of like working with. And then the final post-purchase pathway is around tradability. And obviously within NFTs, secondary marketplaces are really important. And also similarly within physical fashion, we see peer-to-peer marketplaces like Depop, etc., being hugely popular. So yeah, I hope that kind of explains the pathway that a user is able to experience on Dematerialised.
Well, there is quite a lot there. I think it shows also that you have got plan to grow the platform and all the other, the opportunity that can evolve, which is great. But let's focus a bit more about NFTs, because obviously it's something that is hot. It became so hot in art that is almost uncontrollable. And, everybody thinks right now they are talking NFTs in fashion, but they actually, it's just because they are hot. But I think it would be very good to break down what actually an NFT can allow a user, holder within the fashion industry.
Yeah. And I think, we understand the hype cycles in the crypto world. So we know it goes in waves, right? And the current wave, the NFT wave, but NFTs have been there since years, right? Like CryptoKitties broke the Ethereum blockchain in 2016 because so many transactions were coming in. So it's not the first time we've been in this rodeo. It's the first time the rodeo becomes so mainstream, let's say. But they've been there for a while. And I think, the most important thing we need to understand is not like NFT this or NFT that. It's just basically an NFT is just a digital representation of a good. That good might be physical or digital, and it's being represented in a way that is non-divisible. Just like, a handbag, you cannot cut it in half to divide it between people. That will destroy the value. Oh, that was a painful one, right? But that's the idea, right? You shouldn't divide the NFT because it's supposed to live as an integral kind of like unity. That doesn't mean that it cannot be co-owned, right? Like the 3 of us could own the NFT of a Birkin bag. That would be fun.
Let's do that.
That's painful and coded it in 3 pieces. So, things like that. So it's just basically the ability of identifying something on the blockchain, and that's something living as a single unit, right? And the basic distinction is as a non-fungible token, a non-divisible token is a token like the Bitcoin, like a Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrencies. They are divisible to several, always to 19 decimal points, right? And in this case, those are tokens that are divisible, they're fungible. So you can own a little bit of a Bitcoin, and the difference is these non-fungible ones that just exist as one unit, right? And they can represent pretty much anything. And that goes back to the concept of identifying things, giving identity to things, right? That's what NFTs do.
But listen, you mentioned about one item, non-divisible, that's fine. But let's say Louis Vuitton has got 10 bags and they are all the same bags. They just have got 10 versions, right? Yeah. It will be 10 identical bags. So what the NFTs should actually be unique. That's all the point in fashion. So maybe do you want to explain that, that part? Because a few people, I think they don't have it right.
Yeah, sure. This is something that we've been thinking about it for a while, right? And this is why there's not all NFTs are made the same. So right now you have NFTs that each NFT is one single smart contract, right? So, or you can have, and this is something that we're doing in Lock. So the one NFT, one contract, but has 10 units of existence or has 1,000 units of existence. And this will be kind of like SKUs in the fashion world, right? Like you have this handbag is one type, but they're going to produce 10,000 or 1,000, for example. So you create the identity for that one model. So you could say you are registering the IP or you're registering the design, or you can see however you want to see it. You're just basically effectively registering that one bag. And then that one bag, you will issue X amount of units that you have for sale, right? The thing is that power dynamics are a bit different in the blockchain world. So you should more or less predefine the supply in advance. So if you said you minted or you generated 1,000 Louis Vuitton bags, you shouldn't come a month later and saying, oh, actually there's 1,100, right? You should keep the rules of the game kind of like fair and square. And that kind of like also will help the consumers determine the value, right? Because right now we know certain fashion items are scarce, but we don't really know. We assume, right, they're difficult to get or they're expensive, but we don't really know the supply. And Louis Vuitton has a lot of stores around the world. So really, how scarce they really are. So by creating NFTs, you create a certain level of transparency around how large the supply is, right? And that can also help to hype a product at the end of the day. But when we're talking about physical products, we enter like a challenging territory that is the whole Oracle issue. Like, how do I know that this NFT or this digital representation correspond to this specific item in the physical world? So start mapping how you link both identities of both entities is kind of like key in this process, right? And there are different methods that you can utilize, and we have explored pretty much all of them. But the key is at the end comes to the digital identity will be or that NFT will be like what you will use to trade, what you will use to understand the history of your product, and also what potentially will give you access to whatever activations Louis Vuitton or whoever will do for you as a consumer.
Yeah, because obviously there is the element of utility, which is something unexplored. And actually, there is not much perhaps that has been done in the art space where all the NFT has been hyped, but it's definitely something very important within the NFT space as well. Yeah. And it could be quite useful for brands to unlock different kind of way to engage with their customers as well.
Definitely.
Totally. And I think that's the biggest differentiation is we are all happy with art just being something that you contemplate and just experience in that way. I think we are all satisfied with that. Fashion is slightly different, right? It's not sufficient to just contemplate it. You want to have some kind of interaction with it or utilize it in certain ways, right? So that's what the fashion NFTs, they're made a slightly difference. And that's why Karinna and I are so obsessed with giving them as much utility as possible.
Karinna, listen, you talk about metaverse and all these kind of separate dimension to use fashion. Obviously, we haven't seen a big brand yet exploring that new dimension. There are some brands doing virtual catwalk and doing some virtual collection, but we are not seeing actually Prada or Louis Vuitton or Miu Miu or Gucci just doing a virtual collection for virtual assets, digital assets to be used in the space yet. Maybe they are experimenting.
That's the truth, though. There's some. Karinna will tell you. There's some example.
Who are you meaning?
Like when Louis Vuitton did all the skins for the League of Legends.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure if you were talking about NFTs, I suppose.
Well, but I guess just in the sense of the metaverse, right?
Sure, yeah.
Excluding the NFT station, but just the metaversation of the product.
Yeah, no, I mean, what we're seeing is pockets of people doing quite what we describe as kind of quite transactional activations. And I guess that is also normal at this early stage of the market when people are trying to be experimental. But I think just as we see the brands that we're speaking to that are kind of integrating 3D design into their like physical supply chains, then one of the big questions we kind of say to them is, okay, you actually have a digital asset already ready. Why don't you pull it through your supply chain and your value chain using our technology and our operating system, and we can surface new forms of value that you wouldn't previously be able to use. And when we then start to think, okay, well, what about all those heritage brands or brands that don't have physical representations anymore, but have a very rich design archive? Why don't we take those out of the closet, NFTize them, if you like, and again, generate lifetime kind of value through the primary sales and the secondary sales as well, with the kind of lifetime royalties. And then I think you start to see that long tail utility for NFTs that really like flies in the face of all the arguments just now. Okay, are NFTs just a bubble? Well, no, like one part of them, of the sales of people investing in crypto art NFTs, is a bubble at this precise moment, but NFTs themselves are definitely not a bubble. It's definitely not a fad. It's here for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to outlive us.
Yes, they will.
Definitely. And what I see is like the added value that this technology is bringing to the brands, which is just what you mentioned. They are exploring, obviously with the right technology company helping them, a new dimension to monetize what they have got. Then we have got the users and all the concept about ownership. And maybe you want to expand a little bit about that, because now, if I have got 10 bags or I've got 2 bags, in case I want to sell them, then maybe I monetize something, but there are all these gray, area where how much I'm going to get. They are going to, inquire if it's true or it's not true. So I think the element of ownership, I would like maybe to expand a little bit. And then I have got the element, another element that is quite interesting is the element of the designer, the creators, because actually that is another area that with the NFTs and blockchain can be enhanced and can be improved as well.
Yeah. So I think, when it comes to digital ownership, that's one of the bigger questions, right? Because the more time we spend in digital environments and the more money we're spending in digital environments, the fact of what are we owning and where's our money going towards is very relevant. So for the last decades, we are, as gamers and as consumers of digital goods, we've been kind of like satisfied with the fact that we just gain access for a limited period of time, right? So whatever skins you buy in a video game, those skins don't really belong to you. They still belong to the video game. The video game is just letting you use them. Right? But if we start thinking, okay, the issuer of the skin or the issuing of the digital good is not a game, but it's a fashion house, that means that I have to buy the product if I want to use it in Fortnite, and then I have to buy it again for Sunstar, and then I have to buy it again for this other, because they're all silos, right? So it doesn't make much sense either, because, and I'm not owning anything. I'm just spending money and I still don't own anything. So that's what the NFTs and the whole blockchain technology actually solves, right? Like that was solved by Bitcoin 11 years ago by solving the double spending problem and having like that ability of actually capturing digital value. So the NFT basically what allows you is to own the digital good. And by owning, so basically what it should be, or how the vision for the future is, and what Karinna and I share, is that you should own the digital good. And that ownership should be your gateway to different places. So that good that I own once, that is mine, that I can keep or I can resell, I can transact, I can rent it, I can do whatever I want with it. I can co-own it with my girlfriends or whatever. That good gives me the access to a video game, give me access to the specific filters, give me access to the next drop, gives me access to this club or whatever it does, right? So it's that ownership that I control, where I put my heart and earn Ether, dollars, or Bitcoins, or whatever it might be, into action. That ownership should be within us, right? And I think that's one of the biggest paradigm shifts that we are living, kind of like in this digital transformation process that we've been going on through the last 40 years, is to understanding digital has actually intrinsic value, and digital ownership is super important. And that goes down to the ownership of your personal data and the ownership of your personal identity, etc. It goes tons of layer deeper, but on the fun layer is own your products and use them whatever you want.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I guess to add to your kind of question around the creators, I mean, the NFT, I guess, economy really lends itself to enabling the creator economy in particular. And I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was how can we see that our end customer, if you like, our end user, is also a creator as well, typically, especially in the first instance as well. And that's another reason why Marjorie and I specifically wanted to create a marketplace and not a generic e-commerce platform, is because we really want to enable variety. We want to enable new forms of creativity. And by doing that, we also see new forms of culture kind of emerging as well as what Marjorie talked about in terms of mindset changes and in terms of ownership as well. So there's a lot of change, but hopefully kind of for the positive, and Dematerialized wants to be kind of at the center of kind of pushing those barriers kind of forward, but really in a decentralized and kind of free way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I was just thinking, where do you got the name Dematerialized?
So we just Marjorie and I were kind of like throwing around ideas, and we kind of, obviously there's been a trend for quite some time for dematerialization, and I'm also quite I like kind of looking at symbols, as does Marjorie, and we kind of like put together, like, one of the symbols is the air sign to kind of symbolize the alchemy around dematerialization. And we see that many other asset classes, so music, film, etc., dematerialization is a major theme in our lives at the moment, and it's just the beginning, I would say, for fashion. So that's why it seduced us.
Yeah, it's great. How do you longer see, how do you think it perhaps is going to take to get to a stage where fashion is going to become digital mainstream, if that kind of makes sense?
My prediction is 6 to 12 months.
Ooh, that's quite, that's quick.
I think it's going to have, a hockey stick kind of, because it's kind of been like slow, boom.
All right, who is going to be is going to come up as a few brands leading it, or how do you envisage this to kind of boom?
Yeah, well, my perspective is I think it's going to be like a domino effect, because I think what we need to see are kind of like two things. One is that the end consumer wants to see brands that they're more familiar with. So the big brands, whether that's luxury brands, whether that's sportswear, but the ones that most people kind of like have in their closets, that will be like a penny dropping moment. In terms of like adoption, as well. As soon as one company starts to make money with digital goods, all the other ones will say, okay, we need to get into this game. So that's what I mean kind of by the domino effect.
Totally. I think somebody needs to pull the trigger first, right? And I think everybody's aware, but I think it's a risk, right? Because it's fundamentally saying, okay, we might be transitioning away from the business that we know and love, right? And been doing for the last X amount of years. So I think they're just looking who will be the first one to do the biggest move. And then I think, as Karinna says, it will be a domino effect that everybody will follow along.
I do agree on that, but I also think that you kind of need to have this virtual world.
One of the second kind of levers I was going to say was the utility aspect. So for us, we see kind of two main trends. One is when AR try-on starts to be very, very strong. That's the ultimate utility effectively for consumers. So that's going to be a lever. And then the other one will be, is there going to be a metaverse in particular that really captures the nation? The way we saw like huge uptakes in things like Pokemon Go as soon as it arrived. So if there's a metaverse like that has a critical mass, that is a natural extension of where people will be able to again showcase their digital fashion, or that's where we could have our next kind of interview.
Yeah, exactly. I think that
it's like, wow.
It is quite interesting because you see young people, for instance, they are spending, it's not they are spending lots of money, but they may be building their own avatar to go into a game, and then they go to my mom, this avatar cost me lots of money, which is actually is the new generation that is kind of understanding more than maybe somebody older. But perhaps if... I'm just saying, we are having a call on Zoom, right? And I'm wearing my clothes, you're wearing your clothes, but perhaps if there was a way where we can actually use our digital items.
Totally, yeah.
That will be a great way to...
And well, the irony for us is that's feasible already. Microsoft have done it with Skype, Snap already integrates into it here. It just hasn't been mainstream adopted yet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe more people have to start to wear it.
Yeah.
Use it as well. It's so interesting. It's really, really interesting. So thank you so much for coming on the show and, have this discussion, because I think it's something that, we do have to do to create awareness as well.
Yeah, education is super important.
Exactly. And, there are industry that I really don't think that they're going to be disrupted so quickly by technology. So if you mention NFTs to anybody in fashion, unless they understand what they're talking about, they would just say, right, cool, right, but it might never gonna take off. But actually, it is something that is gonna fundamentally change the industry. So it's important that we explain that.
Yes, exactly.
So for anybody that wanted to go and check out Dematerialised, where they can go and where they can find you if they have got any question.
Yeah, definitely. So follow us on Instagram. It's probably the platform, or on Twitter. We're very active on both. At the Dematerialised on Instagram, and just Dematerialised on Twitter. And then if you visit our website, sign up to join one of our access codes, because just now we're invitation only. And as soon as we have our next drop, you'll get an email from us, usually about 48 hours before the drop, where you'll get access.
Okay, sounds cool. And Marjorie, if anybody wants to know a bit more about Luxo?
Yeah, same thing. Twitter is very active. I think in Twitter we're just at Luxo, I believe. And then our Discord channel is also very active, our Discord server. So that's also a great place to go.
Okay, amazing. I'm going to look forward to have you back soon when, we see things moving a little bit.
And we'll be wearing our digital fashion, right?
Exactly. We need to have that on. This is everything from the Financial Fox. I really hope that you enjoyed the show. And if you're not subscribed yet, press the button and follow us on social media to stay up to date with our recent news. Also, we have just released a new website, and you can also subscribe there to get our newsletter. I will see you next time.